I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David Walker. I have a special show for you today. And for the very first time, I have two guests. As you know, normally I only interview one person, but today I have two guests that I'm interviewing. And I want to ask you a question. When does two guests equal one? Well, the answer to that is when they are married, because we know the Bible said that the two shall be one flesh. And so I have two guests today. My guests are Dr. Victor Herbin and his wife, Dr. Serelda Herbin. Now, before I bring them on, let me just give you a little bit of an intro of the Herbins. So both the Herbins are retired military veterans. Dr. Serelda is the CEO of Coaching That Cares. Dr. Victor is the CEO of Limited Time, Unlimited Impact. And finally, they are the authors of their new book called Maximizing Marriage, 18 Lessons Learned That Sustain Our Marriage. And so I am so excited today that I have Dr. Victor and Dr. Serelda Herbin joining us on Beyond the Culture. Welcome, Dr. Victor and Dr. Serelda. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, I am just so excited by having the both of you on the show. And of course, I recently met Serelda. We were on a Zoom meeting, and we got to typing while the presentation was going on. I was introducing myself to you, and we finally connected, and then we were sharing some things. And then the other day, I was watching your, they call it Meet the Authors, or rather you call it Meet the Authors. And your new book had just come out, and you were doing a Meet the Authors on Facebook. And so I had logged on, and the two of you were just sharing, obviously introducing your book, but then you were just telling stories about your relationship, your marriage, again, being in the military and all of those different things. And I thought that the presentation was raw. It was exciting. I mean, you know, I'm looking and you had over 1,000 views. So people were really in tune to your Meet the Authors night. And I said, I have to have these two on just to talk about life, talk about marriage, talk about your new book. So I'm really excited about you being on the show. Let's get right into the conversation. So here's what I want you to do. I want you just to tell us how you met. Don't go into, the marriage yet. Don't talk about the book yet. Just kind of give us the beginning story of how the two of you met and what was that all about. I did read Serelda's portion of how you first met. And so, Victor, after she talks, you can either confirm or deny whether or not that's the truth. And then we'll listen to your portion. So go ahead, Serelda, you go first on how y'all met.
Okay, so we were both lieutenants in the military, and in Fort Bliss, Texas, in El Paso, Texas. And I had a mentor who was a lieutenant that went to Jackson State. So in El Paso, what we normally do in the military, we'll find all the minority officers, those that are older in the military, will come and groom us and pull us under their wings. So he was an Omega, and he invited me to a house party. I don't normally go to house parties because they're kind of sketchy. So I'm like, So I trusted him and I went. So there I was in the kitchen with my girlfriend, and this guy comes along with another guy that was completely drunk, by the way. I don't know how y'all ended up together. But anyway, and he goes, you could be my wife. I'm like, no. God would tell me if I was your wife, and I mean neck rolling and all kind of stuff going on.
Uh-huh.
And I said, no, you're not my husband, because God would tell me. He was like, you don't know. So then somehow I got into asking the question, well, do you go to church? Okay. He goes, well, my daddy is the pastor. If I want to go to church, I just pick up the phone and call him, so I don't have to go show up nowhere. I'm like, oh no, strike two. So we were going in the wrong direction. And so after that was December. He ended up going to church with me for New Year's, which is where he normally not ever go. He normally is in Las Vegas with his fellas. and he went to church, and we've been together ever since. He proposed that August of 2000 actually, right before I deployed to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. And 8 months later, when I got back, we married. So that's my abbreviated version. Let's see how much he's gonna try and switch and turn around here.
All right, come on, Vic. Tell us
She
the
always
story.
chooses these interesting pieces of the meet and greet.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm a proud member of Maker Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, life member. And so in 1999, the gentleman she's talking about, he just officially crossed over. So this is going to be their probate. This is going to be their party. So I'd been in Fort Bliss for about 1.5 years already, and I'm still, I'm with the bros. I'm okay. I'm gonna go to this event. But I normally go solo because I already got my frat brothers there. But today I decided to take
probably not
my
why
other.
He goes solo.
I said, I'm gonna take my partner with me. And he's not Greek, but he was a West Pointer. So a lot of times, not to my West Point friends, their party experience in college is a little limited. So my friend who had no shyness towards the beverages, he took the time to say, okay, let's go have fun. And he is super wild. And so we go out there. I don't know what he got a hold of, but he started drinking something.
Okay.
And I saw, Serelda and her friend. I said, wow, that's a nice looking lady. And my friend, he said, yeah, they nice. They nice. I said, but you got to stay low. Stay low. And he says, okay. So, but he is toasted. So I go over there. I'm just talking. Hey, how you doing? My name's this. And she's giving me this look like I'm not interested.
Okay.
I'm not here to meet no man, especially at no doggone party. I meet my men in the church. So I'm saying, whatever, okay. But she's, let me see what I can do here. So I'm talking. I said, so how would you like to go out sometime? And she said, I'm not interested. I don't go to parties. So I'm working it. And it's not, my friend's embarrassing himself.
And distracting us.
Yeah, he's embarrassing himself, distracting us. And so I said, well, you never know. You would tell a no to your future husband. She said, no, God would let me know if you was my husband. And he ain't said nothing yet. I said, you don't believe in divine encounters? This could be that. And she said, no. So somehow I was able to get her phone number. Get the phone number. I call, and she's not picking up the phone. I'm calling for a couple. We say, this is it. I'm not calling anymore. And so finally she answered the phone, and lo and behold, I said, yeah, I was trying to contact you. She had such an old spirit. She said, yeah, I was on church meeting. I had a choir. I said, you 23, 24, what you going to old folks singing? Yeah, and that's why I've been to church. And then I had this meeting at the church. I said, whoa. I said, well, okay, we tried to go to a movie, took her to see the Green Mile movie. I thought it was a great movie. It is a long movie. Afterwards, we went to eat. She fell asleep. She fell asleep on me at Denny's.
Because I didn't eat. I was asleep.
So, a couple of days later, she invited me to help her out, study for an Army test. And that happened to be on New Year's Eve, Y2K. I was able to stay and help her out. I was getting calls from my friend to go out and party for Y2K. They kept on blowing up my phone. I saw her getting dolled up for church, which I'm not trying to understand.
And I invited him, by the way.
Yeah, who goes to church for Y2K? And we went. She sang a song, Order My Steps. I was done. I watched this, and I was done. And next thing I know, I'm in the church. I wound up joining and becoming a member and giving my life to Christ. We wound up getting engaged at August of 2000 and then married May of 2001. So.
All right. Now, before we get into talking about marriage and all that kind of stuff, and we'll talk about how did that come about. But I want you to take us to the military. Take us to the military. Tell us about the years you were there, the division, your ranking. Just give us that background so we can understand about your military experience.
Okay. Well, for me, I graduated from Grambling State University. I was on an ROTC scholarship, which is a scholarship that the Department of Defense offers, and then you have to give them time back. So basically, I was in the military strictly to pay back my time and get out. I was not there for the long haul. I didn't have any historical ties from my family. My sister was in the military, but she went in for the same reasons, for money. We didn't have money to go to school. So I was there, which is also a funny story. I was at Grambling. We were getting our assignments, and I picked personnel. I picked HR. I picked, Adjutant General's Corps, which is AG in
Okay.
abbreviated terms. Now there's another one that is AD, which is Air Defense Artillery, which is all the grungy, get dirty, go to the field, shoot launchers from a missile.
Patriot missile system.
And that's what I got. And I said, whoa, how did I get this? And at the time when I graduated from Grambling, I was still doing pageants. I was, all kind of stuff. I'm like, I can't do that. That's not what I do. And so they were like, well, maybe because you had a high GPA, your major was computer information systems, it'll work out. Don't worry about it. So I went in and I adjusted, adapted, did well. And as a lieutenant, I came in as a second lieutenant, and then of course you move up the ranks and everything. And then from Fort Bliss, we left together and we went to Fort Jackson to our advanced course to kind of move up the ranks in higher level leadership training. And then went to Germany, and eventually, fast forwarding, I retired in 2016 as a major. My last assignment was at the Pentagon.
Wow.
So I worked for the Secretary of the Army and retired there and came back on as a government civilian, which is what I'm doing now for the Department of Defense. So.
Victor?
Yeah, unlike hers, I am from a military family. I'm a military brat. I'm about fifth generation military.
Wow.
My dad served 22 years in the United States Army, retired as a colonel. My grandfather retired after 30 years in the Air Force. So I come from a military background. All my cousins, I'm the oldest of 13, oldest male 13. About 7 of us are in the military. So I come from a military family. So when I graduated high school in California, I applied for ROTC scholarship, and I got accepted to the University of Southern California, and they paid my way through college. So when I graduated, I was commissioned a second lieutenant in Air Defense Artillery. I had a desire to do HR. My father was HR as well as Air Defense, so I knew at least that pathway. But my goal was to join the Army and have them pay my way to law school. I wanted to go to law school and be a sports attorney.
Okay.
So when I joined the Army,
I wasn't taken care of.
Well, that is part of the story.
We don't do that in Louisiana.
So let me finish my story.
Well, go on, finish your story.
I'm trying to. So I went ahead and I was commissioned in 1998, and so my first assignment was El Paso, Fort Bliss, of course, where I met her about a year and a half later. I had a variety of great assignments. Fort Bliss, Texas, I was a platoon leader for air defense, so I was responsible for what they call the THAAD missile system. So I blew up enemy airplanes and enemy missiles. Of course, during that time, it was Iraq was a big threat with Saddam Hussein, as well as North Korea with their missiles. I had opportunity to serve at White Sands Missile Range as an aide-de-camp, so as an assistant to a general for 2 years. Then I became a captain. We moved to South Carolina for HR school, then went to Germany. While in Germany, spent 6 years in Germany. I served as a personnel officer, like a director of personnel for a logistics unit. Deployed to Iraq in 2003 for the OIF-1. Shortly after our son had turned 3 weeks old. I left right when he was born, about 3 weeks after he was born. Came back from Iraq, became a battalion operations officer, and then became a company commander. And I deployed again to the Middle East. This time my son is 2 years old, and at this time we've been married since 2005, 7 years. I come back from that tour, still in Germany. I go to another assignment in Germany, make major, come back to Texas, Fort Hood, Texas, and I get ready to deploy again. This time we have a daughter. She is now about a year and a half, 2 years old. And I deployed to Iraq for my third tour. 5 months into that tour, Serelda deployed to Iraq as well. I came back in 2010, and then we went to Leavenworth, Kansas for another school, Fort Leavenworth. Then I was assigned to the Pentagon, where I worked there for about 2 years, working policy for some of the, what I call dark side of the Army, some suicide issues, alcohol, drug abuse, equal opportunity, SHARP. That was the portfolio we worked for. Following that, I had an assignment at the White House. I worked on the Obama administration as the director of personnel for the White House Communications Agency. That was exciting. And then I culminated my career as a battalion commander for the Baltimore MEPS, 12th Battalion. I was responsible for enlisting people into the military. Individuals interested in joining the military, they have to go through what they call a MEPS, Military Entrance Processing Station. And I ran that for the Mid-Atlantic area. I was responsible for MEPS in Baltimore, Maryland, Fort Lee, Virginia, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Beckley, West Virginia, Charlotte, and Raleigh, North Carolina. So I was responsible for all people joining the military within those states. And then I retired shortly after that in 2018.
Okay.
And that was my career in a nutshell. Very exciting time.
And your final ranking was?
Lieutenant Colonel.
And Major.
And Major. Wow. Awesome. An awesome career. When you talk about the military, you were taking us, we're just regular people and we hear things, we watch television, and you just shared some things with us. But I would like for each of you to give us one thing that you experienced being in the ministry, whether it was an event or something dealing with a fellow officer. Just give us one thing that we would be surprised to know. And just one thing.
I think we call them crucible events when I was in school.
Okay.
And I think my crucible event was when I was deployed to Iraq and we were deployed together. Kind of goes without saying, but we had a really bad argument when we were in Iraq because he was in the north part of Iraq, I was in the south part of Iraq. We had to have permission to have conjugal visits.
Well, I was going to get to that. So don't jump ahead of me because I saw that show, and I'm going to ask you about that later. But I just want you to give me something that, again, something in the military that we would just be totally surprised that it happened or it happens, something like that, that would just something that the regular person would not think takes place, in the military.
I think the military in and of itself is a microcosm of the United States.
Okay.
I think that when it comes to trend setting, when it comes to racial barriers, racial institutional biases, any of those things, but I think that in some instances it is.
Okay.
Even right now, it doesn't surprise me that when we have things that go on the outside, and when I say outside, I mean outside of the 1% or less than 1% that serve, there are a lot of things going on. And when you have to serve, the term that I would throw out there is psychological safety.
Okay.
We want to say that we see bias, we see race, we feel it, we touch it, but in our minds, we're soldiers, we're airmen, we're Marines, we're coasties. And so when we go to war, basically we go into the military to train to go fight.
Gotcha.
A lot of people don't think of it that way because we have so many benefits right now going on. You can go to school for free. You get housing, you get medical, you get dental, your family is taken care of. But in the grand scheme of things, most of the time people may not walk around thinking, I'm here to go fight a war. We don't fight all the time, but I think the mindset kind of slips sometimes. And now we're moving back to that space where they're cutting the military, they're shaving down the force to make sure that we're ready to fight at any given time from any spectrum. It's not just fighting in the dirt and getting dirty. You got electronic wars, you've got cyber wars, you've got so many things going on that's not a traditional type of war. So that's what I would add.
Victor?
I had an interesting experience when I was stationed at Fort Leavenworth. I qualified for what they call a scholars program, and they sent me to the University of Missouri to get my master's in journalism.
Okay.
And during that time, we had 8 of us officers that were selected for that. And so now we're in this journalism school, a lot of liberal students. And one of the things they had no idea, of course, is the interaction of military and civilian interaction, very limited. Over the years, they show that the common civilian has less and less experience with military members. Some now that have not that many parents that serve, the grandparents haven't served, so that connection. So one of the things that came out in one of our discussions was when we said, one of the guys had a chemical engineering degree, one of our officers. I already had a master's in human resource at the time. Another guy he was a submariner. He had a mechanical engineering and electrical engineering doctorate.
Wow.
So these students, while we're in this class, and they're saying, you guys are smart. But y'all in the Army. Okay. Yes. You're in the Navy. He's in it. So wait, so now we're having this discourse of what did you all think happened? We thought you guys just go down and shoot and blow up stuff. We didn't think you had to be quote unquote smart to join the military. It's like, where would you get that from?
Uh-huh.
You know, we're leaders. We have to galvanize groups of individuals to do some of the nation's hardest jobs. Like she spoke of, go defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Dropping the fact that you got a child, a wife, you're going to handle the nation's business. So having to lead people and having the intellect to design plans, policy, making sure that it's executionable, but also making sure you can gain that enthusiasm for your team, it takes a level of intellect. And so us, and not only that, our tenacity, because this course that we had, a 2-year master's program that 8 of my fellow officers, we finished in 9 months.
Okay.
And the lady said, I was surprised to know that no one can finish Missouri, the #1 journalism school in the world, and you all finished in 9 months. We said, yeah, we're Army officers. What do you think we are? You tell us we can't do, we're gonna do. We're adaptable. So that exchange really helped, one, show that American people don't have that, very few American people had an interaction with military personnel. So,
Right.
So understanding that, you know, that was probably one aha moments where we said, what do you mean? I went to the University of Southern California. This guy went to West Point, went to the Naval Academy. We're not box of rocks. And we fight, but why would you all? So they had a feeling that people end up in the military. No, we chose to go in the military. And then after our commitment was there, we stayed to retire. So I think that's something where a lot of people don't realize that it's not something you end up. This is a profession of arms. It's a professional institution, and it requires the best people, best of America's best.
Right.
Absolutely. I want to move to your marriage. When did you get married? Talk about that, and then just tell us a little bit about your family. I know you mentioned your children, but just kind of give us, you know, when did you get married? You can give us a little bit about the story of when you got married, but just tell us a little bit about that, and then just kind of tell us about the family that you have at home.
Okay. We got married 26 May 2001.
Okay.
It probably one of and unique engagement because, of course, we got engaged a couple weeks before she went off to her deployment to Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
So a large portion from August 2000 to February 2001, we were geographically separated as fiancés.
Okay.
And so during that time, this is part of the military piece, the community around you, the family. My mother's in San Antonio, her sister's stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. I'm in El Paso, Texas, and she's in Middle East. And coordinating a wedding through email, they're talking about 2001 email, phone calls, and really making that come to fruition. So when she came back from her deployment in February, we got married 90, 120 days later, that May. So, you know, not many people enter a marriage already geographically dispersed and then working those things and leveraging the support network around.
And so go ahead. So for me, you know, of course, he's told the majority of that part of the story, but he mentioned earlier we do have 2 children. We have a almost 17-year-old son. He's a graduating senior this year, and we have a 7th grader, a daughter, and we have almost 6-year-old pit bull girl puppy dog.
So tell us, how was it being married in the military? I mean, I'm married 37 years, as I shared with you the other day, and I'm a civilian, and, you know, and I know what we go through to make it through, you know, but you two were in the military. You talk about being deployed different places and then having to have a successful marriage that has made it these 18 years. So tell us about, how was it being married and being in the military?
I think mine is going to be short, so I'll let him, because something comes to mind when I think about how he would, you know, categorize this and sum it up. But for me, I think it was very unique. I think it was a great opportunity to be an example for others to follow behind us. It was not easy because we were in the same career field.
Okay.
And being a year apart in professional stature, we often had opportunities where we would compete in the same bowl to get jobs. And so early on, I decided, again, he has a lineage in the military. I do not. I'm there to pay off loans. I'm there because they paid for my schooling. So if I have to go, I'll go. And so we agreed. If we ever got to a position where we were going to compete, I would step back. Not because I wasn't qualified, but because our family was more important.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people didn't understand that. A lot of our mentors that I did not understand that, but it was more important for us to preserve our family versus our careers. And so that was one thing. The other thing that I'll defer to at this point is when we were talking on our anniversary post, when you posted the anniversary post, and you were saying that, you know, we've encountered enemy contact and blah, 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 blah. That was like the best personification of our marriage in the military from start to finish. So maybe you can share a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think, again, we don't realize how blessed we are till the back end of it. You know, as young lieutenants, we're just young lieutenants. Hey, all right, this is great. And thinking, okay, wow, one day we will have children, which we had already planned. One day we're going to make lieutenant colonel and we're going to do this, you know, but also, you know, we do get so tied into our career that sometimes, and we've seen some of our friends who are no longer married now, or the second or third marriages, get so intoxicated by the rank, the power, the wealth, the stature, that they start peeling away and moving away from their family.
Mm-hmm.
And you start seeing that disconnect. And so that is something where we had agreed on early on, but, you know, unlike what she would say, she said she would never compete. Mm-hmm. I was probably more in her camp of, go get it, babe. No, do not turn down these opportunities. We're going to make it, you know, because I still see, I know she took a step back, but there are some assignments I know she would have handled it flawlessly. Had one, they gave her the chance. Two, she said, you know, let's go all in. And, you know, maybe it's my ignorance and seeing the goodness of that time to say, well, it may have taken a bad impact on our family, but it was definitely, the career part was, okay, how do we manage this? You know, there's a thing in the Army called the Married Army Couple Program, where they'll make sure that you will be with your spouse and no more than 50 miles separated from them. You can't be on the same location. So,
which is still a long way.
Yeah. So we always said, hey, we're not disenrolling from this program. Mm-hmm. They're going to find a spot. The impact was, to her point, we're in the same career field. Well, we can put you in this place, but your spouse may be over here, and this may not be career enhancing for them. So yes, we want it. Because guess what? At the end of the day, it's no longer what the Army Uncle Sam says is going to be good for our career. It's what God's going to say is good for our career. And if he blesses our family, he's going to bless our career. So having those discussions, saying, all right, ground rules off the bat, let's have the best of these assignments, but let's make sure that when opportunities come, we're going to take them along. They don't put our families at a risk.
I think also one thing that I would add from my perspective is I didn't feel I had anything to prove. Because I came to the table as who I was. You know, I was raised by my grandmother. My mom and dad were, you know, drug addicts. They were kind of dabbling in drugs. I never knew my dad anyway. But so growing up with my grandmother, she could have been a general in the Army, you know, because she was a very, very, very tough disciplinarian. So going into the military for me, and, you know, hearing people, you know, throw out these passive aggressive comments and, you know, trying to convince you or me that I'm not good enough, it didn't faze me. Now, that did give me in a lot of trouble. Because I had they call it the trifecta. I'm a Black female. I'm an officer. You know, and I'm educated. So there's a trifecta when you go into the military as a minority female and educated, and you happen to be a senior leader. So it's an expert. And I attended an HBCU, so I'm not expected to be able to read or write.
Wow. So
I'm also placed into a different category. Now, some would argue that and try and refute it, but it is what it is, you know. And so you have those type of situations as well that come up and you have to deal with. But in my mind, when we started talking about who's going to do what, I have nothing to prove, because if God is going to bless me. He can bless me in the military as well as blessing me outside of it.
Yeah. When we had the assignment to the Pentagon, when we were leaving out of Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, our one of the senior leaders sat us down and said, wow, Vic, you've been by name selected to come to the Pentagon, work for this general officer. It's a great opportunity. We're having trouble right now finding a spot for you, Serelda, but we're going to find a place in D.C. She said, hey, listen up. It's not about me. Put him in the best assignment needs to make sure he's competitive for whatever God has in store for him. Just make sure my family's not separated. Mm. And, you know, we look back and I look back and we say that may have been the difference of, you know, her getting promoted to the next level, not because she really said, look, put me in this assignment. And she kicked it in that next assignment where people, as she talked about the trifecta, didn't recognize her efforts. But she knows I was quick to go to battle for her. And when she about to get out and retire, I was so upset. I said, "This is a package deal."
Well, it was because I wasn't promoted.
Yeah, when she got passed over for promotion in 05, I said, "Well, I'm done too." She said, "Babe, what's wrong with you?"
No, you're not.
I said, "I'm done. They ain't gonna be a package deal up in this camp. They ain't gonna take Serelda Herbin out of here and not take me. I'm gone too." Babe, you're good. You're about to get promoted. You got this command coming up. I ain't feeling it.
Hey, and we got bills to pay, so you ain't going nowhere.
I was mad. And then she said, "But I'm gonna retire."
Okay.
I said, "Oh, you gonna retire? Oh, you still gonna get? Oh, okay, we good." I said, "Oh, you still gonna retire?" I thought they was gonna kick you out and say thank you for your 17 years and bye. You know.
Now, Dr. David, one of the other things I want to mention is, and I know sometimes he said this in interviews and conversations we've had, that he's been amazed at my faith and all of that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But around the 10-year mark, I remember saying, and I wrote it in my journal, if God comes and tells me at 18 and a half years that it's time to go, mm-hmm. and just a little insight, once you get to 18 years, you're locked in and they allow you to stay for a 20-year retirement. Okay. So if you never get to 18 years, you don't get a retirement. You just get out, they give you a severance pay for like $90,000 and say goodbye, that's all you get.
Okay.
Unfortunately, everything that I said when I was in for that 10-year mark manifested itself exactly the way I said it. And people were like, you're going to leave if you got 18 and a half years? Yeah, because I'm trying to hold on to something that I think is going to secure me, and God could double and triple that on the other side.
Right.
And so my faith, I released my faith, and guess what? 17 and a half years I was in, and when they retired me out, I was just shy of 18 years. Hey, if you're going to let me go, then pay me. And they did. And God took care of it. So I'm so blessed and so grateful for that, because he's faithful. He's never done me wrong. He won't do you wrong. And so I'm just walking in it. Very grateful.
That's awesome. Let's talk about the book. You guys wrote a book, and I want to give the name of it again. It's called Maximizing Marriage, 18 Lessons Learned That Sustain Our Marriage. Tell us the inspiration, and I know, you know, God had to be the inspiration. It was your marriage was the inspiration, but just kind of tell us, how did it get started, and then why did you write it?
You want to tell it, or you want me to tell it? Well, let me tell my version, and you can come back and clean it up, whatever you feel you need to do.
Call me the gender.
So basically, on our 18th wedding anniversary weekend, God had, you know, dropped and deposited into me that we would write a book. Mm-hmm. He would write half the book, I would write the other half. 9 chapters from him, 9 chapters from me. So soon after that, a couple of months later, and I told him about it. And the first thing he said, well, God ain't tell me nothing. I didn't hear nothing. I said, okay, but he can talk through either one of us. So it doesn't matter. It came through the team. So what are you talking about? So he was on strike for a while. He was like, no, I got other stuff to do. And I got my own book to write. And you already wrote a book and blah, 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 blah. So we went on this cruise with some couples, and we had a good time. And finally, I think he kind of started coming around about the book or whatever. And we ended up writing. So we got the chapters, we got the names. And, you know, again, Dr. Will, which is our mutual acquaintance and how you and I got connected, you know, he took us through the formula, took me through the formula. I went to the class and then brought it back, wrote my first book. And then we turned around again that following year and start, you know, working on our book. Mm-hmm. I think the inspiration behind it for me after God deposited it is that our marriage has gone through so many ebbs and flows.
Okay.
We have decided on so many occasions that somebody made a mistake and didn't hear God. And I don't think this is what we're supposed to be doing. And there is somebody else out there that will get on my nerves less than you and block all of that stuff, you know. And like in the book, it talks about it, you know, cheating, lying, infidelity, you know, all of that stuff. You hear about it, it happened in our marriage. We got the t-shirt for it. And so to be able to still be here and watch our friends that have divorced, and you know, we think about the reasons that they have divorced. We don't know anyone's situation. We only know what they share. And so for us to be able to still be standing, and nothing is perfect, we are still a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
We felt the need, you know, to put it in a book. And now I'm not going to lie and say that I didn't meditate and fast and say, well, God, it's only 18 years. There are people who've been married 37, 40, 50 years. His parents have been married almost twice as long as we have. And I'm thinking, well, why didn't you use that person? Well, why didn't you use this person? And he said, because I'm using you all.
There you go.
And that was it. And so from there, you know, I'll defer to Victor and see what else he wants to add to it.
Inspirations, I got a couple. You know, as she stated, my parents have been married now 46 years, September 13th. My grandfather, bless his soul, before he passed away, him and my grandmother had been married 52 years. So I come from a long line of married family members, you know. So that's one inspiration, like, wow, what they've imparted on me, what I've seen growing up. The other inspiration from the other side of the spectrum is my children and my nephews and nieces. Like, wow, you know, that is something I love watching. My mom and dad to this day still love each other, and you know how my grandfather loved my grandmother. So being able to see that and say, okay, wow, what my kids say about my wife and I, what will my grandkids say? And so that's the other inspiration. Before we started writing, again, you know, I subscribe to a mantra: limited time, unlimited impact. We have a limited time on this earth. We don't know the time nor the day it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. But while we're here, make it impactful. We can make it unlimited, meaning your legacy. And so while I was, as she says, tap dancing and tiptoeing on writing the book, while I still had those two inspirations, I was, you know, experiencing some mental challenges, in the sense that about a month prior to her revealing that, my mom had said that she got cancer. And so I was like, what? That blew down just hearing a C word takes you down for anything. I had already just graduated my doctorate a year prior, going through my retirement, to start my new job. So I already had some plans in the work, but getting that phone call in April of 2019, that broke me down. That's like, world stops right now. I don't want to hear anything. I need to get home. I need to fly home to Texas, spend time with my mom and dad, and that's it. So she talking about the book, and God, I ain't hearing about no book. I ain't worried about no book. I ain't worried about nothing. I need to go see my mom. And that's where my focus is. And I can get out of this rut, because my first tour to Iraq, I lost my cousin, I lost my grandfather. So I'd always been dealing with those challenges of, you know, those emotions. So to be retired now and be there for my mom, there's nothing that was going to take me away from that. But at the same time, still serve the inspiration, saying, wow, you know, to be able to write with my wife, honor my mom and dad for what they've done, and them being part of this book as a marital mentor, as a positive example, and then looking at my children and saying, okay, let's get busy, because if I subscribe to a mantra, we have a limited time, limited impact. Where's your unlimited impact? Let's get busy. And so it wasn't anything she can coach me to do. There's nothing that it's me, but realizing who I am, why God placed me on this earth. And as you know, yes, there's embarrassing the things we've gone through and did to one another in our marriage, but at the same time, it's growth. And we're no longer young 2-year couple. We're now 18, almost 20 years. So there's people we're now mentoring. There's times that even while the course of this book, that people ask questions that, well, we've gone through this, we never knew. And it's like, wow, we had a mentor of ours told us a long time ago, all that for this. So all that experience we've gone through in 18 years for this, to help someone else, that, hey, it's not over. Yes, it hurts, but it's not over. brush yourself off, look at each other and say, look, you answered I do.
Mm-hmm.
You asked her. You asked her, you said I do, you said I do. So get back in there, champ, and fight. Keep it going. So those serve as my inspiration.
And I think the other part about it is, overall, even with the topics in the book where, for my part, where it talked about, you can't rehearse the hurt. If you're going to stay, you can't rehearse it. You have to stop. One of my bishops told me one time, we were going through counseling and I said, love shouldn't hurt. And he was like, who told you that? Mm-hmm. Who told you love did not hurt? I'm like, but it's not supposed to hurt. Nobody's supposed to get hurt. He said, okay, I'm going to say one word. And he said, Jesus. That was it. He didn't have to explain what he meant. He didn't have to pontificate on what it meant for love to hurt. Mm-hmm. When he said Jesus and his whole life hurt, so I was not comforted that hurt would, be a part of it. But I was, it was confirmed and I had a resolve that, love does hurt, and go ahead.
So let me ask this, because I was going to ask you to give us, and for each of you to give us one lesson that we need to know, because you said that each of you wrote 9 chapters apiece. Yes. And I would like for each of you to give us one lesson from one of the chapters you wrote that we should know. One lesson from one chapter that each of you wrote that we should know.
Marriage is a perfect union between two imperfect people.
Okay.
And I think if we realize that early on, we will, in marriage, in any marriage in general, we will have less issues because we have an understanding that we are different. Mm-hmm. And there's no intent for me to try and change you. And there should not be an intent for you to change me. And, just thinking about and reiterating some of the things that we went through, lies, distrust, infidelity, all of those things. When you compound that on top of what I just said, marriage is a perfect union between two imperfect people, and then you bring that stuff on top of it, your mm-hmm. trust is compromised. And the last point that I would make is, if you choose to stay mm-hmm. after all of that, you don't have an option not to trust.
Gotcha. Yeah.
If you stay, you have to trust. If you don't want to trust, then you don't need to stay. So that's my little piece.
Dr. Vic?
I would say protecting your garden of Eden from the serpents. We all look at the fall of man and say, well, why did Eve take the doggone apple? Well, then why did Adam eat it? He had a choice, but got it. It happened. But guess what? Each one of us, our marriage, I look at that as our Garden of Eden. That is our paradise. That is our place of refuge. That is our safety spot. That is our place of love. That is our place for rebirth. Yet, it's still going to be under attack. And mm-hmm. I look at everything that she just labeled out as a serpent. Okay. There's serpents that we're all going to encounter in this journey. Mm-hmm. Day 1 of your marriage to day 73. There are going to be serpents. How are you protecting your garden from that serpent? When it does come at you, have you all built in a protection measure of forgiveness? Have you put in a protective measure of love? Have you protected measure of security and safety, stability, loving, all those kind of things to protect it? Because regardless how many years you've been married, those serpents are coming. Some of those serpents will, using the military term, it will flank you and they will expose your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And when it happens, you don't give up. Mm-hmm. You refortify your defenses and say, okay, got it. Let's go again. Okay. And I think that's something that I think when a lot of people get married, they go into this fictitious, oh my gosh, I love you, and this is going to be so wonderful. This, the euphoria you have when you walk down the aisle is supposed to exist the whole 30, 40, 50 years. Mm-hmm. No, that's no gift registry items in. and you start looking at the cake is done. No, it's time for business. Sure. And I think learning now how to insulate and build upon those moments and say, okay, look, are we protected enough when someone comes look at you and they tempt you, or when you don't know how to manage your money right and now mm-hmm. you're taking money from our account, or that you don't feel comfortable protecting the children or watching the children, whatever those serpents are mm-hmm. that can pose a threat to your garden and you guys having a safe, healthy marriage. That is something I believe is one of the most important things, because through Christ, everything's possible. And if you don't protect it, you just gave more room for the devil to come through.
You both said that you each wrote 9 chapters to the of the 18. But you also said that you didn't see what the other person wrote to just prior to the book launch. Is that correct?
Correct.
So being that you didn't see what the other person was writing until it was ready for print, if not printed already, tell us one thing that you learned from reading the other person's chapter, at least one thing from reading the other person's chapter, that you didn't know, but it was a learning experience, or something that you recently discovered because they put it in the book.
I think what I have learned and what has been confirmed is that we truly are different.
Okay.
And that he is not as antagonistic as I thought he was.
Okay.
He is a debater. I am not. I don't like to debate. If we're talking about this bottle right here, this bottle is clear. Period. That's it. He would say, well, they made this plastic. I don't care. The bottle is clear. Is this bottle clear, Victor? I mean, really, you got blue on there. The bottle is clear. So for me, I think one of the things that that was confirmed for me is that we are different. It's okay that we're different. We see things differently, but there still has to be resolution in the end.
I learned.
What do you What is all that for? About the time? What is it?
I could go many directions.
Oh, you wise one. What are you about to say?
What I learned when I read her, I kind of said, dang, that made Fly some bad dude. But when I look at it, I recognize he's no different than she was when I met her. Not in a bad way. That I know over the years that I used to get frustrated. I still do at times. Like, you don't laugh. I'm the silly one. Let's go. Why don't you want to talk? We sit there and be like, man, but I know I ping. I realize that I got the energy. I'm that one. I'm the super extrovert. And then after I finally get it all out, I'm like, all right, I'm good. Let me go just be in my corner. Mm-hmm. But when I read the chapter, I'm like, dang, dog, in the beginning, you said she's quiet, she's this, she's that. And for some odd reason, you were drawn to the energy.
Okay.
So why would you think after 18 years, when she's still quiet, she's still not going to laugh, all those things, that things change. Right. And then to reading her stuff and how she may perceive me at that time, I'm glad she said I'm not as antagonistic. I'm not. I'm just that.
You don't have to confirm or deny. That's my piece. Don't be trying to take my stuff.
So it's just that was a thing. Just that she's who she is. Mm-hmm. And that I loved her for that then. Why would that change now? And right. The same passion she has for life and love is still there. It's this, and it's articulated because I tell her, man, you seem like you're going raw. I felt all that emotion in your stuff. Is that she loved that much for her family. She loved that much for me and the success of our marriage. But what she envisioned moving in, starting this life based off of what her experience and my experience is, like, this doesn't measure up to what I imagined a marriage is supposed to be like. This dude's he was my Superman. He had all this stuff, but he ain't nothing right now. What's all this? And this seemed to me is the realization that, yes, we all said I do, but as the Jahari's window gets open and we start showing our true selves, so like, okay, but now we both got to understand, all right, this is no longer the facade. Mm-hmm. So how do we adjust to that? And so more when I read it, it was more me watching her revelation of this dude that had all this criteria from his mom and dad being married. He's the military, but he's a preacher kid, all this stuff. And her, not necessarily expectation gets set down. It's just like rewriting what she thought marriage was going to be like. And then the reality of what marriage is. Okay. And then the hope and expectation, what it means to love unconditionally.
What would you say is the one thing you wish you had known when you got married?
Are you saying in terms of each other or just in general, or
something that it's really in general, or it could be either or. It could be either or. It's, you're 18 years in and you say, if I only had known that when we launched this marriage, things could have been better. We could have had we could have went a different road. Is there anything? Doesn't have to be. I was just asking, is there one thing that you can say that you wish you had known when you got married?
I think I would flip it and say there are some things that I did not want to know.
Okay.
My grandmother, I grew up around all women, so there was no model. My mother and father were married, but he left when I was 3 years old. So I didn't have models at all of what marriage was. What I learned was a whole lot of independence.
Okay.
And so there was no balance. And coming into the marriage, I had my own money, I had my own car, I had my own apartment, I had my own everything. So to share that with someone whose budget was, if I go to the store and my check bounces, that means I don't have money in the bank. That was different for me.
Okay.
Even though I didn't grow up in a model home of marriage, I was taught some more things of how to survive. So my survival skills and mechanisms were totally different from his, because he had a lot of structure, a lot of support around him. Whereas for me, my structure and support was the entire town. His was an actual traditional family. So that's what I would kind of share.
I guess kind of the same line, just more because I had that the way I grew up. I probably had a misnomer of men women roles and traditional family. So and my grandmother raised 7 kids, my mom being one of them. My mom raised us 3, my sisters and I. Daddy was the breadwinner, mommy worked. But so having that and watching how mom and dad interacted, traditional roles, mom handled the budget, mom handled business, mom handled the kids, daddy handled what he had to do with the kids, but we all had a very structured environment. Our experience coming together and really understanding her background, like, how to handle how she would speak. I say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because I'm not used to you talking to me like, yo, I ain't that dude. So just learning, how am I talking? But in her world, that was normal. You, the youngest girl out of all women in the household in the South. So, you got to be hard.
Right.
So learning is like, you a little too hard right now. We don't need to be that. So learning how to, process and accept different people, even though I'm a military brat, but now that male-female role, those dynamics, her isms. And so I wouldn't be so quick to, be bothered by it or irked by it.
Interesting. Earlier, you brought up this word, conjugal visit. This is a term, conjugal visit. And I was watching the night you were doing your Meet the Authors. And Dr. Victor, you started talking about the story about having to need permission, which was an authorized letter to have a conjugal visit with your wife. Would you tell us about that story? Because I was on the floor listening to that. I mean, this man, he needed permission to go and have a conjugal visit with his wife, an actual letter. So you tell the story. Go ahead, you tell it.
So again, it's my 3rd tour in Iraq, first tour for OIF. And ideally, we never had to deploy together. Again, it's my 3rd trip. We never wanted to deploy together because at this time, especially, we had 2 children. When I left in 2009,
I was still breastfeeding when I deployed.
Yeah, our daughter was a little over a year old when I left, and our son was 7. So it's actually, yeah. So it's very unusual unless you elect to go downrange with your spouse. Normally, the military is going to try to keep one of the spouses back home. So no problem. Unfortunately, her unit wound up getting placed higher in the queue because Afghanistan had elevated, so she had to go to Iraq a little earlier. So no problem, we're downrange, and so she's concerned about the kids. I'm like, wow, my wife I ain't seen her since September 2009. Here it is, February, March, April. So, hey, look. And there's general orders, meaning, you're not supposed to cohabitate. So males are not supposed to be in female dorms or choose.
Basically, you're not supposed to have sex at all.
Not supposed to have sex, unless it's your spouse. But as she stated earlier, I am about 4 hours north of her. She's in Baghdad. I'm 4 hours north in a city called QS, Kayara, Iraq. And my boss said, look, there's an opportunity for you. We got a convoy going down to Baghdad. Anybody want to go? Now, no one's just dying to go on a convoy. We're talking about either ground convoy, you're going to deal with IEDs, EMPs, it's a threat, okay? It's a 4-hour trek, okay? Or you're going to take a helicopter, which is no safer either because you get shot down by RPGs. At this stage, I'm worried about no helicopter getting shot at the ground by an RPG. I'm not worried about EMPs or IEDs. I need to go see my wife in Baghdad. And so the colonel said, well, we got to get the letter of release. I said, sir, what we got to do? He said, let's submit this paperwork. I'm going to see my old lady because there ain't nothing. Look, if you can get me down to Baghdad, see her for 1 night, 2 days, don't matter. And if I the idea of the way back, I'm dying happy. You cannot have me up in the doggone thing. My old lady, my wife is down there. Nah, y'all gotta send me and I gotta see her. So I had to get that approval. She had to get approval from her side so we can spend the night together. But you weren't gonna stop me from making that trip down there.
I hear you.
Yeah.
As we draw this conversation to a close, I just want to ask you guys just to give me 2 people who you would say was very inspirational to you, whether it's an inspiration to your marriage, whether it was a inspiration for you being in the military. Just 2 people, each of you give me 2 people who you would say was most influential to you.
For me, I would probably, there's so many people that have impacted me.
Okay.
But I think the 2 that, if, not thinking about it, would be my grandmother and my sister. Okay. And I say my grandmother and my sister because, number one, like I told you before, my mother and father married, but he left when I was 3 years old from the state of Louisiana to California because he physically abused my mom to the point where he, beat her in the face with a pistol, the butt of a pistol, until they could not recognize that she had a face. Mm-hmm. And so I never met him. And then my grandmother took a chance and decided to raise me. She didn't have to do that. Okay. I didn't have to be in a safe environment. And so for her to do that, I'm here because she decided I needed to be in a safe place. Okay. Even though people would look at that situation to say it's not a traditional family, it was normal until I realized what normal was by textbook definition. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know any different. I thought that growing up with your grandmother was normal. I didn't know any different. Number 2 was my sister. My family is very complex because we were not raised by our parents. Okay. All of my first cousins were raised by my grandmother. So the familial side of connecting with people is very easy for me because so many people took care of me. Mm-hmm. My sister, my mom's oldest daughter, because my mom was on drugs, she was the one who was instrumental to get me signed up for a scholarship because she knew that going into college, I didn't have the means to pay for it. I didn't have a family to fall back on. So the ability for her to set all of that up and launch me into that space, it was a foundational paradigm that kind of shifted everything that happened in my life. So even though she get on my nerves sometimes, but that's what sisters do. She was very protective, so much so to the point where she checked him before we got married. How are you going to take care of my sister?
And then what happened? We went heads up. She didn't check me. I didn't check her, but she wanted to make sure that I had her best interest at heart for her sister. And we had to understand it. That's my girl.
So those are the 2 people that I would call my most inspirational because they were part of the foundation. Of course, at every level in your life, you have people that inspire you. Sure. But the foundational parts of that and elements of my life, those would be my 2.
Vic, give me 2.
I have to go back to family. That's a big part of me. My father, definitely. Again, that's my best friend. He was an Army officer. So, but growing up, he took the time as often as possible to spend time with me. To the point where going through the hard times of the late 80s, early 90s as I was in high school, midnight breakfasts, to spend that time talking with me. Hey, son, what are you trying to do in life? This is the threats out there against you. You know, yes, my daddy came from the projects and made it all the way to teach at West Point, to retiring to colonel, and now the pastor. I mean, this his story, but he always had a time. He's so gentle, so loving. He's always there. And so when it came down to joining the military, I had no desire. We were in California at the time, and Dad said, so what's the plan? I said, Dad, the plan is I'm going to law school, and I'm going to be a sports attorney, and I'm going to stay here in LA, and it's going to be great. He said, son, that's awesome. He said, so how do you think you would pay for college, law school? I said, well, you and Mom. He said, that's a possibility, but what if you were married? You sure wouldn't think your parents are going to pay for your way to law school and you're married. No. He said, but did you know that the Army has a program that pays your way to law school? I said, really? He said, yeah. And I said, Dad, you know, that's not for me. That was your thing. I love being independent, but that Army thing is not for me. He said, just apply for the scholarship. So applying for it, got it, and I enjoyed it. So I'd say definitely it's an inspiration not only for me joining the military, but also just setting guidance, you know, let me know everything was so possible. You know, getting my doctorate degree. Daddy says, what you waiting on? Get it. You know, son, you got it. You know, the master. These things where I had self-doubt along the way, whether it's being a commander in the Army, being a battalion commander in the Army, applying for special programs. He was there. Son, you can do it. Who better than you? If not you, who? So that always, he stayed an inspiration. And then particularly within my marriage, he married us. So being able to always never used, all right, I'm your daddy, this is what you got to do, but always been able to have the line. All right, Dad, I need you to talk to me as a pastor. All right, hey, this is what I need to talk to you about. And was there for me in that regard to not look at me as a son, but look at me as, you know, a congregant, look at me as a person he married. Okay, this is how you can be a better person, son, or this is what you did wrong. And then, of course, my mom, you know, her being a military brat as well, then becoming a military spouse for 22 years, and then having military children. You know, I'm in the service, and both my sisters are married to service members. So my mom showing the power of love, the power of selflessness. When we said we both were in Iraq together, my mom came to Fort Hood, Texas to watch our two babies. Moved into our house.
Wow.
Left what she had, her comfort level as the first lady in San Antonio, helping my sister and her kids. My mom moved to Fort Hood, Texas to take care of my babies while my wife and I were in Iraq. And my mom was the one that was instrumental for us getting married and helping that transition piece while Serelda was deployed and I'm away. So, and then that's my girl, you know. And so again, when she had to go into her battle with cancer, and she did defeat it, that was a wake-up call of how much they both mean to me. And when I, being now not tied to the military comes and goings, I had the freedom to go home and see mom and dad and spend time with them and learn even more now than I probably did the first 17 years I was in the household. One, because you're a kid. I didn't care. Now you see, wow, that's what they meant. Wow, that's what they did then. Raising children is very difficult. Being married is very difficult. But now being able to see my parents, not only as parents, but as confidants, friends, as mentors, and my greatest cheerleaders, they served as my inspiration.
As we close, I want each of you to give us just one inspirational message, whether it's about marriage, whether it's about life, just something that each of you can share with us that's inspirational for my audience.
The one thing that I would say, and I can say it in my sleep, wake up talking about it, is you are not your circumstance.
Okay.
You are not your circumstance. We go through a lot of circumstances in life. There are some things that we're proud of. There are some things that we're not proud of. But regardless of whatever circumstance you're in, you are not the sum of that circumstance.
Stated earlier, but we have a limited time to make an unlimited impact. Our connections need to be purposeful. Just because I meet you today, what does that mean? That 5-minute encounter, that 2-year encounter, that 30-year encounter, make it impactful. because the seed that I deposit into you today can blossom to a garden, a forest, 20 years from now. And I think it's very important that we understand that we're not here by accident. Each one of us are God's children, but we have a limited time to make the best of this time we have on this earth to impact our generations. And so it's about legacy.
Amen. So the name of the book, and you can hold it up so we can see it, it's called Maximizing Marriage, 18 Lessons Learned That Sustain Our Marriage by Doctors Victor and Dr. Serelda Herbin. So tell us where the listeners can get the book if they want to get it.
The book is on Amazon. The book is $15 for the paperback and $2.50 for the ebook. This book was a #1 bestseller, a #2 bestseller within 24 hours, and a #1 new release within 24 hours, and it stayed there for about a week. So, considering there's so many books that are published on Amazon daily, to be in that category as a #1 for anything says a lot about people wanting to read the book and have interest in it. So I do appreciate anyone who would love to purchase and learn a little bit about us, and let us know what you think. Drop a comment and a remark on the Amazon page. Thank you so much in advance.
And share any of your social media contact information.
Okay, I am on LinkedIn as Dr. Serelda Herbin, and it's all of these are under my name. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and I'm also on Facebook. You can find Coaching That Cares on Facebook. You can find Coaching That Cares on Instagram as well. And then you can find me on my professional social media outlet, LinkedIn.
Similar, limitedtime-unlimitedimpact.com is my website. Same thing on LinkedIn, see Victor Herbin III. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Herbin. Same thing on Facebook, Vic Herbin. That's how you can find me, as well as on Instagram, Vic Herbin.
Well, I want to thank my two guests today. This was really an outstanding conversation with Doctors Victor and Dr. Serelda Herbin. We talked about the military. We talked about marriage. You inspired us and you encouraged us. And as I do with all of my guests that come on the show, I tell them that you have gone beyond the culture. And we thank you for being on the show today. And we really appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Dr. Walker.
All right, guys, you take care.
You too.